What's up, nostalgia nerds and treasure hunters? Josh Levine here, and today we're traveling back to the 1980s and 90s and bringing back some very valuable souvenirs. And that's right, we're counting down the top 10 nostalgic collectibles from the 80s, 90s that have skyrocketed in value. If you're a Gen X or millennial like me, some of these will hit you right in the feels and maybe in the wallet too. From the toys we destroyed as kids to the games we never thought to keep sealed, prepare to be amazed at what they're worth now. Spoiler, you might kick yourself for not keeping that childhood stuff in mint condition. Let's get into it. Number 10, VHS tapes. Be kind, rewind, and cash in. Remember the days of VHS tapes and VCRS? You might think old videotapes are worthless aside from sweet memories of blockbuster nights. But guess what? Sealed VHS tapes are now collectibles. Early prints of classic movies have collectors scrambling. Example, a factory-sealed Back to the Future VHS reportedly sold for around $75,000 at auction recently. Great Scott, $75K. Even Disney tapes, horror films, or limited release cassettes can fetch hundreds or thousands if they're in top shape. It's a nostalgia thing. People want to own the movies exactly as they remembered them. So before you toss those tapes, check online. That dusty Star Wars trilogy box set in your attic could be worth a small fortune. And if nothing else, those rewinders might finally pay off. Number 9, vintage tech gadgets. Who knew our old electronics would become the new antiques? Early generation gadgets from the 80s and 90s are hot. Take the original Sony Walkman or a Game Boy. Collectors love them, especially unused ones. The first generation 2007 iPhone is a prime example. One still sealed in the box just sold for $63,000 this year. That's 100 times its original price. It blows my mind that something from 2007 is vintage now, and that valuable. Even those beeper pagers or Nokia brick phones can draw interest if they're rare models in mint condition. It seems people are feeling nostalgic for the tech that started it all, or maybe they miss when phones could hold a charge for a week. Either way, don't sleep on retro electronics. They're the new classic cars of collecting, just smaller and won't leak oil on your garage floor. Number 8, vintage band tees and 90s fashion. If you have an old concert t-shirt from the 80s or 90s, treat it like gold. Seriously, vintage rock and rap tees have exploded in value. Original tour shirts of bands like Metallica, Nirvana, or the Rolling Stones are selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars in the resale market. A rare 1992 Nirvana shirt, for example, has gone for over $7,000 online. Why? Because they're wearable art and super scarce now. Most got worn to rags back in the day. It's not just tees. Think starter jackets, vintage Nike windbreakers, those ridiculous Coogie sweaters. Gen X and older millennials are rekindling their youth through fashion, and prices are climbing. The more authentic wear and tear, aka vintage look, the better. Who'd have thought your worn Def Leppard shirt would become a status symbol? So before you cut that old tee into a rag, check eBay. It might fund your next vacation. Number 7, sneakers, Air Jordans, and more. We touched on game-worn Jordans in the last video, but here I'm talking about sneaker collecting at large, a huge 90s nostalgia-driven trend. Those Air Jordans you begged your parents for in 1991, if you had kept a pair dead stock, new in box, some models are worth thousands today. Original Air Jordan 1s from 1985 have sold for over $20,000 in top condition. Even 90s Air Jordans like the Jordan 5 or 11 can easily hit the high hundreds or low thousands now, depending on rarity. It's not just Jordans, Reebok pumps, classic Nike Air Max, or any iconic kicks from that era are collectible. Streetwear culture turned these into investment pieces. In 2021, a pair of Kanye's 2008 Yeezy Nikes, the prototypes, sold for $1.8 million. The first sneakers to break $1 million at auction. Wild. The key is original condition. Collectors want them pristine, as if you just stepped out of Foot Locker in '95. So if you happen to have a stash of unworn sneakers in your closet, you might be sitting on a gold mine. Number 6, Star Wars toys and action figures. May the Force be with your portfolio, because vintage Star Wars toys are white hot. Those Kenner action figures from the late 70s and 80s that we threw around the sandbox, sealed examples now command astronomical prices. The legend is the rocket-firing Boba Fett prototype, only a few exist. One sold for over $150,000. Even regular figures like a 1978 Luke Skywalker with telescoping lightsaber have sold for $25,000 plus in package. Beyond Star Wars, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, all those 80s toy lines have hardcore collectors driving up prices. A mint condition Optimus Prime or Castle Grayskull playset can go for thousands. It's all about recapturing childhood. These buyers finally have adult money and will pay whatever it takes to reclaim a piece of their past. I find it heartwarming and a little crazy. We're talking toys that cost $3 in 1985 selling for the price of a used car today. If only we hadn't blown them up with firecrackers back then. Quick tip. If you still have carded figures or boxed toys, don't open them. Their value is in that untouched state. As a wise Master Yoda might say, profit or profit not. There is no try. Number 5, Lego sets. Did you painstakingly build Lego sets as a kid? Turns out those bricks can build value too. Discontinued Lego sets, especially from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, have surged in price on the secondary market. Collectors love themes like space, pirates, castle, and Star Wars. For example, the Ultimate Collector's Millennium Falcon, released in 2007 for around $500, can fetch over $3,000 sealed today. Older 90s sets like a monorail or a big castle that were maybe $100 new now hit well over $1,000 if unopened. It's mind-boggling. Who would think little plastic bricks outperform the stock market? But they often do. The key is that Lego retires sets, so supply becomes limited while nostalgia and new adult fans boost demand. Even used sets hold good value if they're complete with the box. I've seen collections from the 90s resell for tens of thousands altogether. So if you were a Lego maniac and kept those old sets in great shape, congratulations. Your childhood hobby became an adult asset. Just be sure to account for inflation of minifigure prices. Number 4, comic books of the late 80s, 90s. We all know Golden and Silver Age comics from the 1940s to 60s are pricey, but here I'm talking 1980s and 90s key issues. Many of us remember the comic boom of the early 90s when we bought issues thinking we'd pay for college. Most ended up in 50-cent bins. But some characters introduced back then have indeed skyrocketed. Example, New Mutants number 98 from 1991, the first appearance of Deadpool. Once a $5 book, now upwards of $800 in high grade because Deadpool became a mega popular movie character. Todd McFarlane's Amazing Spider-Man number 300 from 1988, First Venom, was maybe $20 in the late 90s. Now a graded 9.8 recently sold for around $6,000. Even niche stuff like the first Ninja Turtles comic from 1984 is worth tens of thousands. What happened? Those characters became franchise gold, and collectors who were kids then now pay top dollar for pristine copies. The irony is many 90s comics were overprinted, but the key issues or rare variants are what took off. So if you have a stash of late 80s, 90s comics, it's worth sifting through for those first appearances and popular storylines. You might have a gem hiding among the foil covers and holographic gimmicks. Bag 'em, boredom, and welcome to the comic boom, part 2. Number 3, vintage video games. Time to dust off that Nintendo. Retro video games have absolutely exploded in value, especially if they are in near mint or sealed condition. Think original NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, N64, etc. A few headline examples. A sealed Super Mario 64 for N64 sold for $1.56 million in 2021. The first video game to break the $1 million mark. Shortly before that, a sealed Legend of Zelda NES game went for $870,000, and a Super Mario Bros. From 1985 copy fetched $660,000. It's not just sealed games, even loose cartridges of cult classics can be worth big bucks. Looking at You, Earthbound, and Chrono Trigger. Collectors are also snapping up old consoles in working order, and limited edition variants like that translucent Jungle Green N64 or the Sega Genesis Telnet edition few have seen. The nostalgia of blowing into a cartridge or the startup sound of a PlayStation has translated into a booming market. If you told me in 1995 that people would be grading video games in plastic cases like comics, I'd have blown a gasket like I blew into my Game Boy, but here we are. So definitely check your closets. That copy of Pokémon Red or GoldenEye 007 might be far more valuable than you imagined. Number 2, Magic: The Gathering cards. Before Pokemon took over playgrounds, Magic, the Gathering was enchanting dorm rooms and hobby shops in the 90s, and early Magic cards have shot up insanely in value. The poster child is the Black Lotus from 1993, the most coveted MTG card, one in gem mint condition, sold at auction for $511,100 in 2021, shattering trading card records at the time. Even played condition Black Lotus cards are worth tens of thousands. It's not just Lotus, the whole set of Power 9, Moxes, Ancestral Recall, etc. are 5 to 6 figure cards now, and many other early cards, the original dual land cards for example, have surged in price. What's wild is these were game cards people shuffled and played with, not knowing their future value. I know folks who traded a Black Lotus for a couple of booster packs back in the day. Ouch. Magic is still hugely popular, and those early cards are scarce, especially in top shape. So if you, or maybe your older sibling, were into Magic around 1994, it's time to rummage through that old card box. You might find a little piece of cardboard worth as much as a car. In the game of collectibles, Magic cards are truly casting a spell on auctioneers. Number 1, Pokemon cards and 90s Pokemon merchandise. You gotta catch them all, or at least catch the one that's worth a house. Unless you've been living under a Geodude, you know the Pokemon card craze went nuclear. Those trading cards we battled on the playground in 1999 are now serious investment pieces. Case in point, a near-mint first edition Charizard card from 1999, the holofoil everyone coveted, can easily sell for $300,000 to $400,000 today at top grade. And that's not even the peak. An ultra-rare Pikachu Illustrator card, only 39 made, was bought by YouTuber Logan Paul for a reported $5.3 million in 2022. Mic drop. It's not just the cards either. Sealed booster boxes of base set Pokemon, the very first set, have cleared $400,000. Even 90s Pokemon video games like Pokemon Red, Blue for Game Boy and vintage toys can fetch hefty sums. What's driving it? Nostalgia, fueled by a generation with disposable income, plus a pandemic-era surge in hobby interest. Also, many early cards got played to death, so pristine ones are super scarce. If you have a binder of old Pokemon cards, run, don't walk, to check their values. Look for that first edition stamp and holographic shine. Your childhood Pikachu might just shock you with its value, pun intended. In short, Pokemon has evolved from a 90s fad into a heavyweight in the collectibles world, and it shows no sign of slowing. So yes, Mom, those cards were worth something after all. Aworo. And there we have it. 10 blasts from the past that turned into cold, hard cash. It's crazy how the stuff that defined our childhood, from videotapes to trading cards, is now defining a new generation of collectors markets. Feeling nostalgic and maybe a bit regretful yet? I know I am. I personally sold my Pokemon cards at a yard sale in 2002 for $5. Out again. Which of these surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane with a stop at the bank vault, hit that like button and subscribe for more fun and informative countdowns. I've got plenty more then versus now value stories to share, and I promise they'll keep you entertained and maybe even make you check your attic tonight. Until next time, keep those childhood treasures safe, and as always, happy collecting. Thanks for watching. Now, where did I leave my Pogs?